Joining me now is author and talk show host Eric Metaxas. Of course, he is the guy that wrote what you would say is the premier book on the life of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Last week, some of you saw the clip that was going viral of what Tucker Carlson had to say about Bonhoeffer. As soon as I saw it, I reached out to Eric to ask him to come on to respond. In fact, he himself responded. Here is his X account right here. He wrote, "Please watch the excellent Bonhoeffer film so you understand how wrong Tucker is in saying these things," which I wish he would have me on for a serious discussion. This is getting way out of hand. Let's look at what Tucker said and then have Eric respond.
Because once you start calling people Nazis, we really have no choice but to start shooting them. To be Dietrich Bonhoeffer and sort of reach the end of reason or even Christianity. Bonhoeffer decided Christianity's not even, he was a Lutheran pastor. Christianity's not enough. We have to kill the guy. I'm not judging Bonhoeffer, who was a great man in some ways, but that's inevitable once we decide that people are Nazis. So you kind of...
I actually, think you need to hear the first part of that again, folks.
Because once you start calling people Nazis, we really have no choice but to start shooting them. To be Dietrich Bonhoeffer and sort of reach the end of reason or even Christianity. Bonhoeffer decided...
Reach the end of reason or Christianity. Wow, what an insult. Does he realize how Dietrich Bonhoeffer died? Does he realize how Dietrich Bonhoeffer basically sacrificed himself so others would live? Joining me now is Eric Metaxas. Eric, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
You too.
I was so astonished by what he said. And Brandon, I want to answer any questions you have, but I just want to say that I always liked Tucker. When he platformed Nick Fuentes, I thought, I can't even believe that he would do something that is so wicked that it blows my mind. It blew my mind. I thought Nick Fuentes is one of the most evil, explicitly racist, misogynist. He's a horrible, everything that everybody says about conservatives, which isn't true, is actually true in his case. So when Tucker did that, I thought, what is the world ending? Has he lost his mind? What's going on? When he then said this about Bonhoeffer, what you just played, there's no explanation because he's a smart guy. What he said about Bonhoeffer is so dumb. I say dumb. I'm not trying to be mean. It's just so uninformed that I was shocked. I thought, this is Tucker Carlson. I've always admired him. And what he just said about Bonhoeffer makes no sense. It's the most sloppy, thoughtless kind of statement. We can unpack it, but we just have to start by saying it was absolutely bizarre that he would make those statements. I wrote a 600-page book on Bonhoeffer, which gives chapter and verse on his life. And a year ago, a great film. Anybody looking for a great film? The Bonhoeffer film is a great film. It came out 1 year ago, and it's spectacular. But what Tucker said makes no sense. I'm prepared to get into why it makes no sense, but I don't want to keep talking. So I'll let you ask.
And by the way, the name of the movie, I interviewed you on it about a year ago. What is the name for those who want to go see the movie?
Well, the film is Bonhoeffer. It's like the title of my book, but it's not the same as the title of my book. So it's kind of like Pastor, Spy, Assassin, or something like that. I never remember, but that's the one to see. It came out 1 year ago. You can see it on Amazon. You can rent it for $4.99. It's a great film, a great film. And, obviously I always say I prefer people to read my book so they can get the details, but it's a great film. And frankly, the story of Bonhoeffer and what he did is very, very important. It's not just interesting or, exciting. It's actually extremely important.
It is important. And we need more pastors to step forward. He started, as you know, I don't need to tell you this, you're the expert on it, the Confessing Church, for any of the new listeners who don't know. He and a gentleman that he was working with, Martin was his name?
Niemöller.
Martin Niemöller, right? Martin Niemöller.
Yeah.
Niemöller ended up surviving. I think he went to a concentration camp and ended up surviving, and I think he died eventually in Canada, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he lived. I mean, he was in a concentration camp for 8 years, a personal prisoner of the Fuhrer. Niemöller was outspoken, was going along with Hitler, and then he woke up, and then it was too late, and so he was in concentration camp for 8 years, and he lived and whatever. But anyway,
he's the one that confronted Hitler to his face and said, "You told the pastors, you take care of your churches, I'll take care of Germany." He confronted Hitler after that speech to his face, right?
Well, no, he went. I can see why you're saying that, but actually, what happened? I wrote a book called "Letter to the American Church," which deals with this, and then I wrote a sequel which deals with exactly what you're talking about, called "Religionless Christianity." And what really happened was Martin Niemöller was convinced that he was convinced that Hitler was basically a good guy. And that's very easy to understand in 1933, 32, 33. It's really easy for us to say, how did he not know? But the fact is, Hitler was not advertising, I'm worshiping the devil. And so Niemöller went along with that. And a year after Hitler was elected chancellor and president, Niemöller realized that Hitler's people, he didn't think it was Hitler, are doing all these terrible things. I need to have a meeting with Hitler. So it takes forever to get a meeting because Hitler doesn't want to meet this guy, because Hitler's thinking, listen, my job was to fool you into telling people to vote for me, and now I'm in, and you can jump in a lake. But eventually he has a meeting with Hitler. And in the meeting, the mask comes off and Hitler reveals who he really is. And that's when Niemöller understands, what have I done? This is an evil man. And this man is not going to do what he said to me. In the beginning, when he first met him in 1932, Hitler said, we're going to leave the churches alone. We don't want anything to do with the churches. We're not going to bother the churches. We will not institute pogroms against the Jews. Of course, he did both of those things. He was bullying the church and stuff. So Niemöller wants to have this meeting with him. And in the meeting, tries to, this is really the punchline. Hitler's attacking Niemöller in the meeting, how dare you? And Niemöller says, but, mein Führer, what? I care about the Third Reich. I'm a patriot. And that's when Hitler says the famous line, which he actually said. It's not in the movie, but he said it in real life. He said, you just worry about I built the Third Reich. You just worry about your sermons. In other words, the church, Christians have no business in politics, in telling evil leaders that they're evil. Just shut up and do as you're told. That's when Niemöller understood that he'd been duped by the Nazis. So it's
and so then he jumps in with Bonhoeffer and the Confessing Church. But does Tucker not know that Bonhoeffer was safe here in America, working in New York? If I remember correctly, he was concerned about one of the Rockefeller planted churches in New York that was all about social justice. And he said, I had to go to the black churches to really hear the gospel even being preached. And he goes back to Germany knowing that basically I go back, I'm probably going to get killed. And of course he does. And I think it was from your...
He's one of the greatest Christian heroes. There's no doubt about it. Bonhoeffer is one of the great Christian heroes. He's martyred for his faith 3 weeks before the end of the war. It's all in my book, which I'm going to lift up for the camera. It's very heavy, so hold on a second.
It's a big book. Yeah.
It's a big. It's a big book, right?
Turn it sideways so they can see how thick that book is.
Look at that. It's a thick. Yeah,
and I have it in my library. And by the way, if I remember correctly, Eric, Bonhoeffer had the chance to escape. That he was going to be offered basically to put on some the clothes, a jumpsuit of a mechanic, blend in, look like a mechanic, and get out. But he says no, because if I do, other people will be killed. So he dies, sacrificing his life, knowing if I go out, other people will be hunted down, interrogated, and killed to try to find me. So he lays down his own life.
There's all kinds of, all this stuff is in the Bonhoeffer book, and there's so much. We don't have time. There is so much. He's such an amazing figure. But the reason we're having this conversation is because Tucker said the most preposterous things. I mean, I'm speechless almost that he said such silly things. He said, first of all, he said, when you start calling people Nazis, that's when, you have no options but to shoot them, right? And I thought, well, first of all, Bonhoeffer was among actual Nazis. So it wasn't like he's calling people Nazis. He was among actual Nazis, and he didn't advocate shooting Nazis. He got involved in the plot to assassinate Adolf Hitler because he knew what Hitler was doing, and he knew that God will hold me accountable if I do nothing. So he was a hero, and he was willing to get his hands dirty. He didn't just say, oh, we'll let some other people get involved in the plot to kill Hitler. I'm a man of God, and I believe that before God, I'm going to be judged for all those that Hitler's murdering. I need to do what I can. And he struggled with it ethically. So I'm just scandalized, Brennan, about the way Tucker, again, I want to think well of Tucker, but what he said is so crazy.
Well, he said when you reach the end of Christianity, as though somehow Christianity doesn't include self-defense. And you and I, of course, students of the Bible, in this audience, students of the Bible, we know that we are the government in our form of government, republic, and that we have the right to self-defense, and that the sword is given to the government per Romans 13 for righteousness. So how can you say you come to the end of Christianity?
No, what I'm saying is what he is saying was so confusing that it's impossible for us to untangle the mess. First of all, Bonhoeffer did not murder or get involved in the plot to murder Adolf Hitler. The Bible says we should never murder, but it doesn't say all killing is murder. When David kills Goliath, we don't say, oh, David murdered Goliath. Right. No, he didn't. He didn't. Moses did murder the Egyptian, but David did not murder Goliath. When you're in a war or when you're in certain situations, that's called, you say, well, yes, it was violent, but it's not murder. So you're not stepping outside of God's will. If you're in the army and you're in a just war and people are trying to take over your country and you have a rifle and you defend your country, that's not murder. If you're if you're a cop and you see people, there's gun fight in the street and you see innocent people and you pull out your gun, you're trying to defend innocent people. You're not trying to commit murder. You're trying to defend the innocent. So that's what Bonhoeffer was doing. And it's complicated, but that's the nutshell version of it. And Tucker, I have to say again, scandalously made a number of statements that they really make no sense. It's so hard to even get your hands around it. It's so slippery. But he basically says, yeah, Bonhoeffer kind of like went beyond Christianity. What does that mean? Bonhoeffer would never go beyond Christianity. He was a devout Christian. He loved Jesus. He loved God. He gave his life. He gave his life for God's purposes. He could have escaped, as you said, he didn't. He could have done this. He could have done that. I mean, he was an incredible man of God.
And how did they kill him in the end? How'd they kill him?
What's that?
How'd they kill him in the end?
Well, he was hanged. He was arrested for his involvement in a plot to rescue 14 Jews out of Germany. He was involved in this plot. So he's arrested, but they didn't know he was yet involved in the plot to kill Hitler. And while he was in prison, that plot was revealed July 20th, 1944. And at that point, 1,000 people are arrested, they're tortured, names come up, and they realize, oh, he's involved in this plot. So at that point, his days are numbered. And so he's hanged right in April 9th, 1944. But he was, he struggled with it ethically. I mean, he didn't say like, hey, let's kill some people. But when you know that millions are being murdered, to do nothing, he knew that to do nothing, God will hold you responsible. And he's often quoted as saying, silence in the face of evil is itself evil. Not to act is to act. Not to speak is to speak. God will not hold us guiltless. Now, I don't think he actually ever said that, but it's attributed to him. And the point is, it fits him. That's what he believed. He believed to sit on the sidelines and say, oh, I'm a religious Christian. I'm not going to get involved, get my hands dirty and try to take down Hitler. I don't care. he said, God wants us to care. God wants us to live our lives in a way that when the innocent are being targeted, we step up. And that was Bonhoeffer's life. So again, whatever Tucker was saying, it was really weird. And I almost couldn't believe it. So
yeah, it is hard to believe, particularly when you have the history. You can go study. I want to get into the rise of anti-Semitism. But before I do, I want to clear away any misconceptions about Bonhoeffer, because I will get emails from very conservative evangelical Christians saying, but wasn't Bonhoeffer a big proponent of social justice? And I try to explain to them, wait a minute, he was in America criticizing the social justice, and everything was about social justice. That not enough churches were pushing and promoting and preaching the gospel. So how can you say he was for social justice when he's criticizing it? And I think he was hijacked, right? His name and persona was hijacked, right?
That's the point. And the funny thing is, when I wrote my book, came out in 2010, I didn't know what I would find. I thought maybe I'm going to find somebody who's kind of like socially liberal or whatever. Who knows? So I do the research, and I am stunned that all the stuff I've heard about Bonhoeffer is totally wrong. I was really shocked that these basically theological liberals hijacked him. They hijacked his memory, they hijacked his legacy, and they presented this Bonhoeffer that when I did the research, I thought, this is just wrong. They're totally wrong. They're making him out to be some kind of a liberal. He was not. And so they really misrepresented him. So my book, without intending to, ends up telling the true story. And that's why it did very well. It sold, I'm proud to say, over 1 million copies. And it was translated into 20 languages.
Wow.
And as I said, a movie came out last year. I recommend the movie, folks. I'm not kidding. It is a great movie. It's not like some little Christian movie. It is a great, great movie that tells the story of Bonhoeffer. So, I tell people you can just rent it on Amazon. It's so well done. I was involved in it, and it's a great movie. But he is one of the heroes of the 20th century. And did we ever think that here he is, a Christian standing up for the Jews, giving his life because he stood up for the Jews? Did we ever think all these years later anti-Semitism would be on the rise in the United States of America in some conservative circles? It's despicable. We need to stand against it.
Let's talk about that, because it is rising. And you maybe you do or don't know what I produced my national conference in 2018, and I picked the title and had a big backdrop banner everybody sat in front of on the platform. And I brought in my Messianic Jewish friend, Olivier Melnick, Arnold Frutenbaum, several other scholars. And the national conference was entitled Holocaust Horizon. Holocaust Horizon. That was in 2018. And I specifically chose that title and hosted that conference because I was beginning to see, and had been seeing for a while, though, what I thought would be the trajectory toward the really rise of anti-Semitism as we're seeing today. I think you probably saw it. I think others saw it. But I think maybe what has shocked both of us is the degree by which people on the so-called right have embraced it. You want to speak to that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the two names that come out is Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. Candace Owens is a lunatic. I mean, just because she may be right about some stuff, but she has said stuff that, I mean, I know the people that she's accusing of being involved in the murder of my friend, Charlie Kirk. I know these people, and I'm just shocked. I don't know if she's just looking to make money or for clicks, or I don't know what's going on, but it's nasty. She seems to be a fire-breathing anti-Semite, which is a nice name for Jew hater. And Tucker has had people on his program who seem to be undermining the idea that the Holocaust really happened. He's had people on his program who make it seem like Churchill was the villain of World War II. America should have not gotten involved. Hitler wasn't that bad. If we just left him alone, everything would have been fine. The kind of stuff that you think, am I dreaming? Am I dreaming? So I do not know what's going on, but I know at this point, we have to reassert the basics. If you love Jesus, you love the Jewish people and you love the nation of Israel. This does not mean that you approve of everything they do, that you approve of Netanyahu, everything he does. No, but we're supposed to have some kind of feeling about this is the land where it all happened. This is the land that God gave to the descendants of Abraham. This is the land. I was reading this morning, actually, in my devotions, and I was so amazed to see it, that there is I mean, it's all over the Bible. And this is why I think how ignorant can Tucker be, right? It's all over the Bible. In the Bible, in Psalm 105, it says, I put it on my X account on Twitter, Psalm 105, written, 1000 BC, right? It says that God remembers his covenant forever, for 1,000 generations, which he confirmed to Israel as an everlasting covenant, saying, to you I will give the land of Canaan. An everlasting covenant. That's not like, oh, until Jesus comes. No, an everlasting covenant, which means that they're returning to the land in 1948 is something that most Christians would see as a fulfillment of God's covenant. And there are all kinds of prophecies that they're going to return to the land. So the idea that, why should I care about Israel? Why? That's just silly. At least it's not biblical. And if you're a serious Christian, you need to know that. Now, Tucker, I get the impression that he's not theologically or spiritually mature. Again, I think he's a good person. I like him. I've always liked him. But when he says this kind of stuff, I think he's hanging out. If he's hanging out with Christians, he's not hanging out with Christians who understand this stuff.
Well, why won't he have on people like you or me, dispensationalists, Christian Zionists? I did a whole series started last night on why I'm a Christian Zionist. And I lay out what are the definitions of a Christian Zionist? What are the definitions of a dispensationalist? One of the things is we don't confuse Israel and the church. They're two separate groups. And we see them forever memorialized in the new heaven, when the new in the new earth, and when the new Jerusalem comes down and sits on the earth. You have the 12 gates named after the 12 tribes of Israel. You have the foundations named after the apostles, showing God's two programs, the church and Israel. And I won't do the whole class here, but I was doing a whole series now, starting last night, on why I'm a Christian Zionist, because this is in the Bible. We start with Genesis 12 and Genesis 13, and you go on and on through the whole book of Genesis, and you keep seeing what he's saying to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, and then Jacob's name changes to Israel. And then you get into the New Testament in Romans 11, and the Apostle Paul saying, did God end his covenant with them? Did they fall as to never be restored? No, may it never be. This is in the New Testament. And yet we see this amazing rise of Jews who become believers in Yeshua, in Messiah, the 144,000 Jewish evangelists. We've got two witnesses on the ground preaching the gospel for 3.5 years, and God's doing a remarkable thing in the Jews, and not to mention the Gentiles that are getting saved. And I say to people, can we not be patient with the Jews as God has been patient with us? Sure, many of them are in unbelief today. But many of them are going to become believers. But Paul said we, the Gentiles, should be making them jealous. Instead, some Gentiles are turning them off.
Right. It's heartbreaking. I mean, it's absolutely heartbreaking. And again, we have to really be clear. It's demonic.
Yes.
Let's be clear, because we always look for political explanations, and we look for it's demonic. Wherever you see Jew hatred, there is the devil. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. I mean, if you really wanted clarity on who, when you're solving for X, when you see this irrational hatred of the Jews, it's like, that's evil. Like that's as pure as it gets. A hatred of the Jews, a hatred of God's people, a hatred of the people out of whom God gave us the Messiah. The whole world worships the God of the Jews because of Jesus, because of the Messiah. When you see Jew hatred, that's demonic. And you see it among certain blacks, among certain whites, you see it everywhere.
Yep.
And and the thing has been, it's so irrational. You have to say, well, why do people hate the Jews? That actually proves to me that they're special to God,
Mm-hmm.
because it makes no rational sense. Why would you hate the Jews? There's all kinds of groups in the world doing all kinds of terrible things, whatever. Why focus on the Jews as, the locus of all evil in the world is the Jews? Why? Well, it's irrational.
Because God has a plan for them. And Satan knows that if the Jews become believers in mass numbers, and then in the tribulation they cry out, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, then the Lord returns and sets up his kingdom and crushes Satan. So Satan's like, well, I guess I better wipe out every Jew in the world so they can't come believers and cry out, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. So God's kingdom doesn't come, because after his kingdom comes, he's throwing me in the lake of fire. So, I mean, it's self-preservation. Why would you go around attacking 0.02% of the population of the world, number one? But the fact that the Jews are being so attacked, that should show us that this is a spiritual demonic plan. Why is it that Islam is getting such a pass from the right? Why is Qatar put $40 million, $40 billion into our educational system?
I mean, it's so funny too, because if you want to see demonic power,
yes,
look at radical Islam. Like, have you ever seen anything more obviously demonic?
Right.
It's so obvious, but Tucker and Candace Owens don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about, Muhammad marrying a 6-year-old, but he was a gentleman. He waited till she was nine.
Exactly.
He raped her.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to talk about that. We want to talk about Netanyahu and how wicked the Jews are.
Well, didn't Tucker say Hamas? I think that's just a political organization. Hamas.
Yeah, he's saying things that make no sense. It's almost like he's hypnotized or something. I don't know what's going on with him. It makes no sense.
Is it going to tear MAGA apart? Crazy. Is it going to tear apart the coalition?
Well, isn't that the devil's desire? Like, that's the devil's goal, is to tear apart the MAGA coalition. That's what's going on. We're in spiritual warfare right now. Tucker and Candace Owens are tools in that. Nick Fuentes is an open monster. Like, he's not hiding it. Tucker pretends or maybe is convinced that he's doing some good. I don't know. But the point is that all of this is spiritual warfare. We have to be clear. That's what this is.
Would you debate Nick? Would you debate him?
It would be hard for me not to punch him in the face. I would never want to be in the room with him. I mean, I'm not kidding. There are people that are so. He has said things. I mean, I could never repeat them here. He has said the most.
Oh, we played them. We have played the clips and edited some of them. We played them.
It's unbearable to me that this young man could say some of the stuff that he said. I don't know what his motivation is.
Are you shocked at the millions of young white men that are following him? Because I have some guys in their 50s and 60s that are trying to say, oh, you guys are making too much out of him. And I'm like, you're in your 60s, okay? Yeah. I'm 56. You're in your 60s. I could also be out of touch like that too if I didn't have 20-somethings in my control room that are telling me, these guys don't understand, Mr. House. This kid is not being followed by just a few thousand people. Yeah. This kid is permeating that young 20-something generation, which is very disenfranchised. They can't find a job. They get out of college, have a lot of debt, DEI.
Look, how do you think Hitler attracted followers? He basically told them what was true, right?
Right.
That's the way evil works. In other words, there's no such thing as we're just going to say pure lies. We're going to sprinkle truth in, and obviously Nick Fuentes is saying things that young men are identifying with, right? I mean, we've had all this, DEI lunacy, as you referred to, demonizing young white men and so on and so forth. So a lot of these young white men, if you're not a Christian, if you don't love Jesus, what's your answer? Your answer is to listen to Nick Fuentes. Mm-hmm. And so this is why it is so wicked, because the answer to these problems is Jesus. That's the answer.
Amen to that.
The answer to young men who are lost is Jesus. It is to follow Jesus, to follow the message of Charlie Kirk. Get married, have kids. God loves you. Give your life to Jesus. That's what Charlie was saying. It's the exact opposite message of Nick Fuentes.
I got 3.5 minutes.
Young men have a choice.
3.5 minutes left with you, and I want to ask you two questions. One, where do you think this ends for America? And what are Christians like you, me, and this audience going to have to do for the Jews? Are we going to find ourselves? And I already have friends that are Messianic Jews that are already working to build trusted networks in the country to hide out Jews if necessary, if people come looking for them, hunting for them. What do you think the church in America is going to have to do if this continues? And then I want to ask you one more before I let you go.
I have to be honest and say, I don't know. I don't know. I do know this. God is faithful. God loves us. And our job is to honor him with our lives, not just to say, well, I believe this stuff, but to actually say, Lord, guide me in how I live my life and what I do and who I spend my time with and what I listen to. And the Bonhoeffer book that I wrote, really, to sum it up, it's faith in action. He said, you've got to put your faith in action. Don't just talk about theology and talk about Jesus. Live it. You've got to live it. And so the book that I wrote more recently, which is Letter to the American Church, sums that up as a message to Christians to say, hey, Christians, God doesn't want you to talk about it. He wants you to live it. He wants you to obey him, to submit your life to him. That's why you're on this planet. And I do believe we're on the verge of great revival. And that's, again, why we're seeing the spiritual warfare, because the revival is very upsetting to the devil and his angels, very upsetting. And so he's thrown everything at us, including the kitchen sink. That's why we're seeing unprecedented hatred, division, confusion. But I really think it's because, God is working and is moving. And I think in the next year and change, we're going to see revival, and we're going to see great things in the United States of America and around the world. I really believe that's happening.
Let's pray to that end. Final question. I hear you were at Mar-a-Lago this weekend, and President Trump walked in and said, well, if there is a guy that can show me how to get to heaven, it would be this guy. He pointed at you. Is that a true story?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the weirdest thing. If people follow me on Instagram or on X, it's just my name, Eric Metaxas. You can see the video. Again, just Eric Metaxas on either on X or on Instagram or on Facebook. But I was at a friend's wedding at Mar-a-Lago. And the president comes into the room just to be nice, as he is, just to say, oh, I want to greet the bride and groom. I'm here. You're getting married here. Let me just come into the room and greet everybody. So he comes in, and I'm right there when he walks in. And he knows me because he watches my TBN show, and he's familiar with me. And I've met him a few times over the years, and he always insists I watch your show. And so he must have, if he watches my show as much as he says, he's heard me talk about Jesus, he's heard me, whatever. So the moment he walks into the room, and after he's greeting the couple, my friend Mike, who got married, and his beautiful wife, Milana, he turns to me and he says, this guy's going to get me into heaven. And I thought, what? What is he talking about? Like, I was so nonplussed. What did he mean? And it's his joking way, I guess, of saying that he knows that I'm, ardent about my Christian faith or whatever. But as soon as he said that, I turned to him and I said, Mr. President, I want to talk to you about getting into heaven. Like, I want to have a conversation with you. But I said, but of course not now, because, he was already backing out. He just came to say hello. And I didn't want to take the focus away from the bride and groom. That would be rude, but I would have loved to keep talking to him, but it just really wasn't possible. And I was sorry that it wasn't possible, but it was encouraging to me that he would say something so gracious to me. And again, if you want to watch the video, just go to my social media, Eric Metaxas, because the whole thing was nuts. It was funny. Well,
I think all the audience prays for the salvation of President Trump. Many thought maybe he became a believer after the attempted assassination. And we thought, well, maybe this is kind of his wake-up call. But then he's come out and made comments about, I'm trying to get into heaven. Then he came out and said, I don't think I'm going to make it on Air Force One a couple weeks ago. I don't think I'm going to make it. I've tried, but I don't think I'm going to make it. And of course, he says these things, and all of us that are watching, who are believers, are like heartbroken, because we're like, we want all to come to the Lord, right? Whosoever, come. And we're thinking, Mr. Trump, President Trump, surely somebody has shared the gospel with you. Yeah. And, I'm sure he has heard it so many times presented. So I guess what we just have to do is keep praying that, he finally is convicted enough to understand the gospel and receive it and say, yeah, you know what? I'm a sinner. I can't save myself. Yes. But
I think that's the thing is what I wonder is, I think on some level he already understands that. And I think he's being coy. I think he likes to tease and to say things that are provocative. So it's really not clear exactly what he's thinking. But I think for him, even to say that, I don't know if I'm going to make it, or I'm trying, or like, that's a level of humility to say that, you know what, even the amazing Donald Trump doesn't know if he's going to get into heaven. That's a beginning of a conversation.
That's a very good point, because at least he's not saying, you know what, I'm a good person. I'm going to get in because I'm a good person. At least he's not saying that. At least he's acknowledging I'm not good enough to get in, but I'm trying. So at least he's not doing what most people would say if you gave him a man on the street interview. Why are you going to go to heaven? And if so, why? Because I'm a good person. So yeah, that right there is a pretty good point. So that's a start.
That's exactly right. But the whole thing was just so sweet that he would say that. He'd point to me and say, this is the guy that's going to get me into heaven. Like, what do you say to that? Like, yeah, I'd like to be part of that process, but it's so funny. It's so funny. So I hope folks will pray that God gives me that opportunity with him.
Absolutely. But it also is a compliment to you that you're vocal enough about your faith that when he sees you, he identifies you as being a Christian. So that's a great compliment.
I think that's probably right. I should think about that. That's a wonderful thing. That's a wonderful way to think of it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Eric, Metaxas.com. You see right there, Metaxas.com. He has a broadcast. He has books. He has the new movie. There's so much, and it'll all be there to link to him on social media and more. Metaxas.com. Eric, thanks for being back with us tonight. We sure appreciate it.
My pleasure. Anytime. Thank you very much.
You have a great night. Eric Metaxas checking in today and tonight. Hope you'll go and visit his website and follow him on X. And by the way, you should get his book, the Bonhoeffer book. It is about 600 pages, highly footnoted. I have it in my library. I've had it in my library for years and years. Right after it came out, I got it. You should all get it as well. All right. Thank you so much, Eric, for being with us tonight. And thank you for watching this segment. And we'll be right back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. Do you appreciate all the free programming we produce here at Worldview Tube? Well, if you do, we need your partnership now. If you're already supporting us, thank you. If you're not, would you please consider doing so? We have to have a big November and December end of the year giving. Please go here right now to this website, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. You can give through credit card. You can give through PayPal. You'll find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. You'll also find our phone number. Simply use that phone number by leaving a voicemail for Melissa or texting her, and my wife will get back with you and help you make your contribution over the phone. We send out tax receipts with our EIN number, well, the first week of February of each year. We, again, have to have a very big November and December as we get ready for pushing out more Christian worldview programming for 2026. So thank you for going now to worldviewfoundation.com. That's worldviewfoundation.com.
Introducing the Sentry Wellness System, the ultimate under-sink water treatment solution designed with you in mind. Say goodbye to harmful toxins and hello to water enriched with essential nutrients like calcium and magnesium. Enjoy the benefits of increased pH for on-demand alkalinity, all from a zero-waste system that fits seamlessly into your home. Installation is a breeze, taking just 15 minutes, so you can have clean, healthy, great-tasting water straight from your tap. Perfect for apartments, homes, rentals, and even RVs. Elevate your hydration and well-being with the Sentry Wellness System because you deserve the best in every drop.
Sentry H2O. Tap into wellness.